Perfect. Right. So, and overloads, this phrase that we've come up with that seems to be sticking. So I'd love to test it a bit more this morning with everybody. So we're describing and overload as grappling with opposite demands in your day. I'm going to talk about a few examples. And I think what we are aiming for is how do we move from and overload to and agility. So the interesting thing about this is what we are not saying is, oh, by getting rid of the overload, we need to sort of substitute. We need to stop doing one of these things. Instead, our argument is that we need agility. And so this is not the sort of stop doing one thing and just do more of something different. This is more about how can we manage and make progress on what often will feel like opposing demands on our day. And we often start to spot, well, one area maybe feels like it's winning too often. So therefore, we're not making the progress that we need. So some classic examples we think of and overload are the difference between thinking and doing. So do you feel like you're sort of got the and agility to spot when you need to spend more time thinking, spend more time doing? Can you move between those modes? Another classic one, having one eye to the future. So sort of thinking ahead in your team, in what you do in your industry, while also managing the day-to-day. I also think, as I was reflecting on this yesterday, some cultures, some organizations help you to do this more than others. When I was in retail is very day-to-day because it's very operational, and it's very here and now. Financial services is actually generally more future-based, so it's a bit easier to do one sometimes depending on your environment and also your own inclinations. People, so focusing on people and looking after people versus performance. So again, we hope there's an and agility there, and hopefully also here we're not trading off people for performance, but it might be one that feels familiar. And this one here is thinking a little bit about the skills that you need today. So what are the things you need to learn that are going to make you even better, even more brilliant at your day job? And then what are the skills that you need to invest in for your future? So I actually had an email about this week from somebody who was saying to me, I know where I would like to grow and where I'd like to go in my Squiggly career, but I just feel like I can't find the capacity to develop the skills that's going to support me to get there, because I feel all of my focus is on sort of my day job. It is, Julia, do you know what? It is a bit essentialism based. I hadn't made that connection thinking about this. But yeah, you're right. I've read Essentialism and I really like it. I asked Greg to come on the podcast, but didn't ever reply. So I'll try again at some point. But I think, yeah, you're right. There's definitely a connection between essentialism and what we're talking about here. So let me know, out of those ones, which of these, if you were to kind of pick one of these, which of these do you go, yeah, that one feels like an and overload, or maybe there is more than one. So let's use the stars. If anybody is new to PodPlus, to put a star on the screen, you're looking for view options, annotate, stamp, and then star. One of the team, I'm sure, will be helpful and get that into chat for you. So view options, annotate, stamp, and then star. You have got unlimited stars. What I'm most interested to hear is, do all of these feel familiar, or is there one or two where you're like, that's definitely me, or that definitely feels hard? Okay, we're not short of stars, which usually means the insights are right. The problem feels real. And let's just expand on this a bit. When we are in and overload, let me know in chat, how does that feel? So when you all recognize this, because we've got enough stars on the screen, so no one's thinking, oh, I never have and overload. We all get this. So how does it make us feel in an average working week? Frozen, Francesca, that's a great word. Freeze as well, that's interesting. Frozen and freeze coming up. I probably hadn't thought of that, so I love that. That's why I love this group. State of panic, flustered, panic coming up, stuck, anxious, overwhelmed. Frustrated is where I went. Actually, when I was thinking of this, I get sort of almost physically frustrated. I think I get quite tense. My partner would describe it as like antsy. You know, I get a bit antsy, I think. Flustered, you feel like you're underperforming, panic, hopeless. Yeah, Reg, that's really interesting. Neither of your ands are getting anywhere. So maybe that sort of state of I'm not doing either means that neither are happening. A bit useless, a bit overwhelmed. Yeah, it's quite demoralizing. Yeah, it's not a happy state to spend time in. Are there any and overloads that we've missed? So when you're thinking about this, so we've said thinking, doing, looking ahead versus the day-to-day, people performance, the skills you need now versus skills you need for the future. Are there any and overloads that you think, oh, there's definitely some tension here between X and Y? Work-life balance, yeah, interesting. Work and personal life, that's coming up a bit. Oh, so that's interesting, the and overload that comes from doing my job really well and supporting my family really well. Would that be a good description? Let's try and write some of them as ands if we can. Laura's done a brilliant job of that. Delivering on my to-do and supporting others. That's a really good one. That's the whole, for those of you who read the Managing Your Monkeys article on HBR, or listen to that podcast episode, which actually is one of our most popular podcast episodes, which is probably a clue. So yeah, are you doing your to-do and somebody else's to-do? If Helen was here, she would be nodding along on that one. She spends a fair bit of time on other people's to-dos. Work and home, yeah, interesting. I don't think either Helen and I got to that, but that probably tells you a little bit about our weeks and how I don't think we quite have that and overload in the same way because of the way that the amount of support that we've got so we can do our jobs. Doing an excellent job versus just enough. Yeah, maybe that's the great and good enough and overload. So where do I need to be great and where do I need to be good enough? Yeah, interesting, Steve. Yeah, focusing on all customers and focusing on those customers that are complaining or making the most noise. Yeah. Delivering my role and having time to exercise, take a break. Great. Focusing on my agenda, and that's interesting, Amal, the your agenda and the work agenda politics. Yeah, making sure that I guess you don't get too blinkered. So you sort of go, making sure I manage my day to day and understand the context that I'm working in, you know, doing that scanning that we sometimes describe this as scanning. Reg, great one. Being in control and letting go. Ooh, I like that one. That's a really good one. I like the being in control bit. I don't like the letting go bit quite so much. Head and heart. Yeah, really good one, Tom. Yeah, that's interesting, Sam, the kind of focusing on your strengths first and also thinking about how do you support your organization. So sometimes those things don't always align. The things that you're the best at is not always what your organization needs. So it could be making my strengths stronger and supporting my organization with what they need right now. And maybe sometimes they feel opposing. Focusing on the detail and getting it all right versus the quick wins. Loyalty versus progress. Yeah. Interesting. Some really good additional ones here. That's interesting, Amy. Staying true to yourself. Maybe it's sort of staying true to yourself, your values, and adapting enough. If any of you listen to Rob Joffe talking to me about why should anyone be led by you, one of the things that he talks about that's always really stuck with me is that we need to be adaptable chameleons. So you're sort of almost taking this chameleon approach. So if you think about a chameleon, the reason it sort of works as an analogy or metaphor, someone will tell me which one it is that your chameleon stays a chameleon, but it adapts enough to its environment. So it stays true to its form, but it sort of understands what's needed in that moment. So maybe it's a bit about that. It's about like staying true to your values and adapting enough. That would be, I can see how that one would work. I think that's definitely something I grappled with. It's sort of at times feeling that frustration of going, well, I feel like I'm having to fit in too much, or I feel like I'm not bringing enough of myself to work. So yeah, how do you balance those two things together? Maybe Petra, interesting. Maybe what about relationships? Building the relationships I need to do my day job really well, and building relationships beyond the ones I need right now. Most of us, I suspect, are very good at building the relationships we need for our day job and are less good at building relationships beyond the ones we need right now. Also, we've seen over the pandemic that most people's worlds have got smaller. People's career communities have reduced rather than got bigger. And we're maybe spending time having less curious career conversations. Brilliant. Some great insights this morning. Thank you, everybody. Everybody's on fire. Maybe because we all just feel this kind of so keenly. So if this is our job to do, if we are trying to make the transition from and overload to and agility, what does that look like? Because what I think we can't hope for, because I think we would be waiting for a long time, is some of these things to just change or resolve themselves. So do I suddenly think your home life will get so calm or your work life will get so calm that that and overload will disappear? No. Do I think most roles require thinking and doing? Yes. To be successful in a squiggly career, have we got to be good at looking ahead and being able to balance that with what we need today? So I think and agility is going to stay within a squiggly career. I don't think it's going anywhere. And you might spot for people who are very into career development, the World Economic Forum talking a lot at the moment about something called learning agility. And nobody is very specific about what they mean by learning agility. But I think it starts to get into this sort of territory, this ability to be agile, to spot what is needed now, but also to move modes, to notice when do I need to zoom out, when do I need to zoom in, when do I need to do more thinking, when do I need to do more doing, and having that agility. You might be naturally better at one than the other, but being able to do both. So let me know now, what feels like the biggest barrier to moving to and agility? So why are we not all amazing at this? Let me know in chat. What is like the single biggest barrier, do you think, for you when you're reflecting on and overload? That's very honest. Yeah, is it me? Do I get in my own way? Time, capacity, expectations, recognizing what's needed. Oh, Natalie, I like your question mark. Is it me? It won't just be you. But I think there is quite a big bit of recognition in when is it you. I think for me, when I reflect on this, most of the time it is me. Lots of people saying time. Asking for help, which again is you. You're like, I don't like asking for help, so I don't ask for the help that I need. Overload, expectations versus reality, the desire to help others, confidence gremlins creeping in here. Gremlins, people who are not familiar with that, beliefs that get in our way, beliefs that hold us back. Not having the conversation with your line manager. So again, yeah, Vicky, being very honest, so that's you not having that conversation. Saying no. Reg, you're not a superhuman yet. I'm enjoying the growth mindset statement there at the end of that. Is like, I will be superhuman. And I think it is recognizing that what this doesn't mean is being superhuman, because that feels unrealistic and daunting when we're already in and overload. Now, just looking at this from a different perspective, if you're thinking now about somebody who you would describe as having and agility, so you will have worked with somebody in your career so far where you think they do seem to manage short and long-term demands. They do seem to switch between thinking and doing. Nobody will do this perfectly, to the point about none of us are superhuman, but you will work with some people who you think they seem to have at least some level of and agility. So sort of have that person in your mind now. Let me know in chat, what do they do well? So when you see this happen, like, what is it that they are able to do? What brilliance can we borrow from them? What can we steal from them? They block thinking time. Love that, Haji, and I love how specific that is. They're good at focusing. They're good at being in the moment. They're great at delegating. Because now we start to get specific, right? We start to go, oh, okay, these are some skills. And anything that's a skill, we can learn, we can practice. They're good at setting boundaries. Brilliant. They're strict with diary time. They sometimes maybe take away emotions. So, okay, push back on unreasonable demands. Yeah. They've got great empathy. I really like that. They look after their health first thing in the morning. Yeah. Strong communicators. Actually, Heidi, do you know what that is true. That's definitely not me. I'm not a morning person, but a few people I'm thinking about, we're all quite good at getting up and doing exercise and stuff first thing. That's not me. And I think I do have some good and agility. So I suspect there is no blueprint for and agility, but it's just good to see what can we spot, what do we notice. They colour code their diary. They're good at focusing. That's an interesting word, Laura. That kind of selfish focus is sort of the opposite of Johan Hari's book, which I love, which is called Stolen Focus. It's like from stolen focus to selfish focus. Now that word has quite a lot of emotion around it. But I think one of the things that I am good at is I think I am good at being selfish. And so there are times where I will be, maybe if I was putting a more positive slant on it, single-minded. So I am good at being single-minded when I need to. And I think that helps my and agility. They don't show stress. They don't have emotional outbursts. They're calm and confident. Boundaries coming up again. That word boundaries, sticking to priorities. Interesting. Because we can start to then think about the so what for you here. You can start to spot, okay, well, if I was to only do one thing, like what's the thing that I need to get better at? Is it boundaries? Is it saying no? Is it exercising first thing in the morning? Is it caging one of my gremlins? Like start to think of these things that you are reading. Like, what is the thing for me? Like for me, it'll be different to all of you. I'll give you a couple of examples now. And so I think there's sort of, and this is very much still work in progress, a bit of a 4-stage waterfall to think through when we're trying to move from this and overload to and agility. And I think it starts with recognizing where the pull is. So for your and overload, the one that feels most pressing, the one that feels most important to do something about, where is the pull for you? So just recognize, is it a pull because you think, well, I particularly enjoy that? Is it the pull because it's the pull of your organization, the pull of the culture that you're in? So if I think about this for me, the pull for me is always towards thinking and to being more future focused. That's my natural pull. But I've been in organizations where the pull will have been much more towards doing and the today. But that's sort of my natural pull, the sort of, if I'm looking at where I'm happiest, when you're looking at these opposing demands, I sort of want to be over here, I want to be over there, probably want to be there, less so. I'm a bit more comfortable with those two. And actually that one is less of a challenge for me. So again, everybody has their own and overloads. So if you've got a bit of paper now, I would be writing down your most significant and overload, which is the one that most gets in your way. And where is the pull today? It might be a pull because of you, because of a preference, your own preference, or it might be a pull that feels a bit more out of your control. Then we want to do a bit of projecting, and we want to do a reframe from frustration to a positive future state. So rather than, we've all been very good this morning at describing the feelings, the frustrations, the freeze, that we've used some really great words to describe like what this pull currently feels like when we don't feel like we've got the and agility. I think you have to start by figuring out your reframe. And the way that we suggested doing this in the podcast, and it worked for me when I was imagining it, was to imagine yourself in the specific scenario of being in an interview. And imagine now you want to make a really positive statement about your and agility. What would that sound like? Let's maybe have a quick go in chat. So just make it up. Imagine now you've done all the things you need to do to move from and overload to and agility. Doesn't mean you get it right all day, every day. You're not some sort of superhuman, but what would that statement sound like? So I do ... and I ... So I might say, one of the things I'm proud of in leading Amazing If or in running Amazing If is my ability to spot and adapt and move between thinking and doing, because we're a fast-paced business that's growing really fast, that's growing really quickly. And even within a week, I've got that agility to move between thinking and doing, to zoom out and to zoom in. And I've worked really hard on, being able to do that. And I can see some of the positive benefits. And I then, if I was actually in an interview, start to get specific about the impact that's had, or maybe what that looks like. So if you were just having a go, what might it sound like? Brilliant, Laura, spot on. Yeah. So I recognize the importance of balancing the delivery of my day job and pursuing the strategic aims of my organization. So maybe I recognize the importance of delivering on my day job and connecting the dots with strategically where our focus is as an organization. Even maybe try adding the word "and" in the middle. I really like that already. I go, brilliant, Laura. That's someone everyone is going to want to employ. Great, Julia. Yeah, I address today's priority, and I always make sure there is some time though to look to the future, to create and to think differently, so we don't get stuck in doing the same things in the same way. Great. I can deliver operational priorities at pace and keep one eye on the future state or what might be changing. Brilliant. Great, Steve. Yeah, I can focus on big picture strategy and be aware of big ticket items. Oh, great. I join important meetings to support my team, and I signal when that doesn't work for some reason. Great. I have the ability to prioritize key tasks, and sorry, that disappeared then 4 moves I was reading. Show fast-paced delivery. Yeah, great. Lovely. So it's not super easy to do, but once you start, I think once you warm up, Helen and I were talking these through with each other, the more you practice, the more you start to sort of do it in your own way and in your own words. Reframing is incredibly helpful because I think we've got to know what we're aiming for. We've got to know what success looks like for us, especially because I think this is quite personal to all of us. Then it can be useful to just think about if you were a fly on the wall and that fly was observing your current and overload, like your biggest and overload priority, where you're trying to move from and overload to and agility, what would that fly on the wall notice in terms of the amount of time that you are spending on sort of one side versus the other? So if I was thinking, I'm getting really frustrated about being very short term and not having any time for long-term thinking, and I'm getting quite frustrated or frozen and those kind of things. If I were to fly on the wall observing my week, what would I see? And maybe what I realize is actually it's 60% of my time is very short term, but actually 40% of my time I am spending some time on some long-term thinking. So I'm just trying to now accurately get a sense of where I'm starting from. Now, you might find it is really dramatic. You're like, I was spending 90% of my time on the day-to-day, or I'm spending 90% of my time and my focus at work, and it feels like it's 10 in terms of home, and I'm not getting that and agility at the moment. But it is good to reflect on where you're starting from, because I think and overload feels very acute. It feels very significant, and we just need to check whether how we feel reflects the reality. I would say every time I've done this, when I was testing this, I overstate the and overload because I really feel it, because I get very frustrated because I sort of want to be doing something over here and that's not where I am. And so as soon as I do the fly on the wall thing, distance gives us a different kind of data. I realize it is never quite, that and overload is never quite as bad as I'm imagining. Now, for you, you might not be like me. You might not be overstating. You might be understating. But either way, it's good to know where you are. It's good to know where you're starting from. And then thinking about two things. Firstly, what's just one idea that you've got to move from and overload to and agility in your specific situation? So what's like one thing that you could do that you feel highly in control of and confident with starting? So let's say it was boundaries. You might just go, on a Monday, Wednesday and Friday, I'm going to be really boundaried and not look at my laptop after 6 p.m. I'm going to put it in another room. I'm not going to work on those evenings, like just for example. So you go, can you take control of that? Can you make that happen? You feel confident about that. What you then just want to do is just think, is there somebody that you need to have a conversation with about that? So let's say at the moment you do the opposite, you work or you've got your laptop open every night, then suddenly people just get quite used to that. So is there some signaling that you need to do, which might just be, oh, I'm working hard to have more boundaries so that I've got a bit more capacity in my day so I don't feel as overwhelmed. So what I'm going to try out is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, putting my laptop away. and you're just signaling to someone. So you're not asking for permission, you don't need their involvement, but you are signaling. So maybe it's just signaling, or maybe it is asking for their involvement or asking for their ideas. So what you might be saying is, this is what I'm hoping to do. This was my idea. I wondered if you'd got any thoughts on that, if you'd got any other ideas. So involve people in helping you to overcome the and overload and move to the and agility. And you can sort of do this. Sometimes this might be with managers, especially if you've got a supportive manager. And we talked in the podcast about don't underestimate the usefulness of having conversations with other people who are sort of and overload empathizers with your and overload. So if you're really struggling with the work-life balance and overload, I mean, that's not unique, right? Look how many people had that this morning. Have a chat with somebody else and go, first of all, you will realize like no one's doing any better than anyone else. But equally, you might have one tactic that does work quite well, and you could share that and vice versa. And suddenly everybody sort of gets a bit better. One of the things that I find is that even labeling for myself, oh, this week is a short-term day-to-day week, really helps me with knowing that then in the future I will have a thinking week and a thinking ahead week. And if I know when that's coming, if I can see that in the diary, I let go of the need to have it now. So that's me, because I get in my own way. So I need to go, okay, if I've got a strategy day coming, if I just label this week or this month or this day as, oh, this is what I'm doing now, but it's okay because doing it now doesn't mean that the other stuff is not ever. And if I know it's coming, and because I like to be in control, that really kind of works for me. And then I think I'm much better at the and agility. And I'm getting much, much better at this. I think partly because I worked in a team that really made me focus on all of the things that weren't quite me. So I had to have a lot of and agility. So almost I had a forcing function that helped me to get a lot better at this. But I still find it hard and I still find it frustrating. Yeah, brilliant, Julia. I think that's a great bit of advice. Just doing a small amount of time on one very small action, you just feel like you're getting somewhere. So I hope that's felt useful this morning. Thank you so much if you were joining for the first time, and thank you to everybody who's come back. I think this is a big topic that we might come back to. Loads of incredible insights this morning. Thank you so much for sharing in chat. These PodPlus sessions are so much better because of all of you. I think we give you a few ideas, but then you have so much more to add. So thank you. I will definitely be saving this chat, and enjoy the rest of your Thursdays, everybody. See you all again soon.